We live in a country in which the president, on his own initiative, can send the entire nation into war. They tell us that this is necessary to keep us safe. Oh? Who keeps us safe from them? You see, when 9/11 came along, they said, oh, the terrorists just hate us for our freedom and values. Oh, this is all just necessary. It's going to be temporary. Don't worry. There's only going to be exercise against foreigners. Oh, yes, it may last a few generations, but that's temporary. Did they seek a constitutional amendment to change the system that revolutionized the legal order? Nope. They just decreed that this was the new way of things in this country.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of the Revolution Report. Today we have a very special guest, Lyn Ulbricht. She's the mother of Ross Ulbricht. Ross is currently serving a double life sentence plus 40 years with no chance of parole for running the website Silk Road, which was a place where people voluntarily bought and sold all sorts of products, including drugs, mostly cannabis, very small amounts of cannabis, but the whole gamut. Silk Road, though, in its original form, was based on libertarian principles, and one of the main objectives of it was harm reduction that came with the violent war on drugs. Essentially, it worked off the non-aggression principle. No products on there were sold that could harm any other person or any other third party sold. Does that sound like an accurate description, Lyn?
Yes, except the only thing I would amend is that although it did end up reducing harm in the drug trade and all that, that was not the point that Ross was making when he set up the site. It had nothing to do with drugs. He didn't care if there were drugs sold or whatever was sold, except as long as it didn't harm a third party. It was more about privacy, free markets, and Bitcoin. It was the first proof of use of Bitcoin. Yeah. And of course, like many libertarians, he felt that drugs were a choice between two individuals. And it did end up, there's been studies on it that was harm reduction, but that just wasn't his motivation to do it. That's Great. My thing, I'd say. Otherwise, it's accurate, yeah.
Yeah. So Lyn, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about your son, like what kind of person he is, how he was growing up, and all that stuff.
Just saw him, actually. I just came from seeing him at the prison. He is, he's always been a great person. I mean, I know I'm his mother, so, but he really is. And there's 100 letters on our website from people who actually know Ross saying amazing things about him. He's just always been exceptional, I feel like, and very easy to raise. He's very laid back. We used to call him Buddha baby because he'd just sit there and kind of as an infant, I could just haul him around with me wherever I went, and he was just go with the flow. And he's kind of like that. He's even in his horrible situation. Yeah. Ross maintains his sanity and equilibrium, and that's just his personality. So he was a joy to raise, really, and always very sweet and funny and just interested in all kinds of things and a very alive person. And that's what he's still like that. He hasn't changed, except that I would say he's matured quite a bit from the 26-year-old who created Silk Road. He's just about to be 36 now.
Wow, that's how old I am. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and he's had 7 years almost of his life wasted, essentially. And for something that he meant no harm, he meant good, and to create this platform. And it's a draconian sentence that really is so wrong that even if you think he's horrible or Silk Road's horrible, which, there's arguments about its faults and the negative things, that sentence is indefensible in my opinion. I don't for any nonviolent person, especially a young first-time offender, but no nonviolent person should have a life sentence. Period.
No nonviolent person should be locked behind
Yeah,
bars, in my
well,
opinion, at all. But
I
the
agree,
fact that
actually.
he's
Thank you.
got the sentence he did, that when you got people like actual violent
Oh, yeah. Well,
criminals,
yes.
actual drug kingpins who get
Compared to like
lesser sentences than Ross.
Much less. El Chapo got half, but there's other ones that are murdering horrible, dangerous people who've gotten 25 years, 30 years. And that's not nothing, but it's not your entire life that you're going to die in prison. It's not a walking death sentence like Ross got, and he's a danger to no one.
Huh.
It really needs to be fixed.
It
Just
really
for all of us, for all our rights. It
Yeah.
needs to be fixed.
yes, it's definitely something that people need to do something about. And I believe they can still go and sign the petition as well
Absolutely.
if they have not already.
Please do. It's at freeross.org/petition, or just there's a banner at freeross.org. We've surpassed 250,000 signatures. We just passed 263,000. Somehow that million sounds really good though, but it's 263,000 plus signatures. We're on our way to 300,000.
What do
And
we
you know,
need to get it in front of President Trump?
well, it's been useful even before that. I'm working on getting to President Trump through whatever connections I have. If anyone has any political connections, please reach out to me. You can reach me on freeross.org. Every footer has a way to contact me. But even up until now, it has helped me garnish support from legislators, and it's impressive. 250,000
Mm.
or more is an impressive number of people who are saying this is a movement now. It's really a movement. And another
Right.
thing that's happening is that President Trump's having lots of rallies, and we Free Ross supporters are going to those rallies, holding up signs, Free Ross, to get on his radar that way. And I'll tell you, he's hard to keep up with because I'm like, oh my God, he's doing another one. But I got to organize people. So if anybody wants to help us do this, it's a big job in their state, around the country, or be a local person in their state to help organize. Please reach out to me because it's been challenging. But we have so far 6 states rallies that Free Ross people have been to. We've been New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, Texas, and in next week, I'm going blank. Oh, New Jersey. What could I think?
Ah,
Jersey, and then a week later, hopefully Iowa. So,
great. That's awesome.
and we're just going to keep going with that. It's only January, and we're going to keep going with that and try to keep up with Trump's incredible energy, frankly, like you're doing. Okay.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, it's great. So that gets us, we want to have people who can really have influence and can get something done to get Ross out, realize this is not nothing. This is a lot of people who want this and see what's wrong here.
Has anybody reached out to like Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, Justin Amash, and Mike Lee, those types of
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
So we're working on things. We're working on people.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just-
sure
It
you are.
takes a while to get people to do things, it just does. It's sometimes frustrating because Ross is sitting there, but people are very busy. There's a whole lot going on in the world right now.
Yep.
And to get, hey, we're over here, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But no, I believe that those people are sympathetic, at least. That's what I believe. So, and we've had others, and a lot of leaders. I don't know if you've seen our widespread support page. It's on our website.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
impressive, and we're getting more and more people joining that. So, it starts to add up to a lot of influential people who are respected and known, and they're saying, no, this sentence has got to go. And Jacob is, of course, one of them.
Absolutely.
Of course, and he's been great and very supportive, and so Yeah, we're just thinking of any ideas. Let me know.
He recently did an AMA on Reddit, and I went on and I asked him, what would you do about Ross Ulbricht? I knew what he was going to say 'cause I'm part of the campaign, but it was very short and pardoned immediately. And
Oh wow, that's
yeah.
cool. Oh, that's great. That gives me chills, even though I knew he'd say it. And just to be clear, it's not. We're not even asking for a pardon, which would be like, oh, it's all wiped clean. We're
Right.
asking for a commutation, which is basically a correction of a barbaric, cruel, and draconian sentence that should never have been given in the first place.
Mhm.
And so a commutation. We're asking for time served. He's done enough. He'll never make another Silk Road. That is, I mean, please. He hasn't even been on the internet in over 6 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be like Rip Van Winkle. He'll come out and go, okay, I got a little catching up to do. But he, you know, he's done enough time. But some kind of relief here has got to happen. It's such an abominable waste. And it's also, he's kind of like the poster boy for excessive sentences. He's not the only one. There are horrible, I don't know, just evil sentences that people are serving that are just awful. It's just not American. It shouldn't be happening in this country. And it violates the Eighth Amendment of no cruel or unusual punishment. And it's definitely cruel and unusual.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not the only one, and I'm sure you've met a lot of other parents out there who go and visit their kids.
Parents, wives, children, yeah. Just families being shattered. I just talked to a woman today at the prison, and the story's horrible. I mean, it's like, oh, and I've tried to help some of them that are friends with Ross. There's a guy for instance, in Colorado where marijuana is legal, and he's got a life sentence for marijuana. Can you believe it? I mean, he was selling marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a large amount of marijuana, yes, but it's marijuana. It's now legal. People are making tons of money off of it. I saw billboards in the Bay Area recently. Cannabis delivered to your home. I'm like, that's what my son is serving life sentence for, and now it's a billboard in the Bay Area. Times have changed, and it's like the Bitcoin thing. Bitcoin was like this dark, scary thing back then. Nobody had heard of it, hardly. Well, now it's like, JP Morgan's all these people were all about Bitcoin, and times have changed. Marijuana is legal a lot of places. So things, that's the thing about giving a double life sentence with no parole. People change and the times change, and people, and it should be fixed. It has to be fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, you think there would at least be a simple avenue of reevaluating things, especially with the way the laws are changing as well.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying one would hope. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the sentence, I actually just watched Deep Web again.
Oh, okay.
In preparation here.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see if you can talk about the judge and the prosecution, how they completely railroaded Ross's defense, excluding evidence, just going with the prosecutor's narrative the whole way. I mean, he had no chance. They wouldn't allow it.
No, and I think most people that go to trial in this country have no chance, and we've lost the right to a fair trial. Frankly, you are punished for going to trial. And that's why 98% of people who are accused of something plea, because they're bullied and threatened by prosecutors, and their families are threatened. And so they plea. Okay, I did it. I'll, even if they haven't, because they know that if they go to trial, they will very likely lose and get a much harsher sentence. And so that's really wrong.
Yeah.
Prosecutors should not be running the show. As far as my feelings about the judge, she's no longer a judge, which I think is a good thing for justice. I think it was her 5th life sentence that year, and it was only May. I think she was known for her harsh sentencing. I've had criminal defense attorneys in New York tell me she had no business being on the bench. This is what they said. that she was abominable, absolutely horrendous. And so, yeah, I think that, well, that's basically what I think of her.
Yeah.
And, that's what a lot of people think of her. So, yeah. That's the thing. The prosecutors, I've been told by a former prosecutor that prosecutors will lie and cheat to get their trophy. They don't really seem to adhere to their oath of pursuing the truth. Two corrupt agents that they knew very well about, and in fact, made sure they were not known to the jury, and so did the judge. So before trial, everybody knew about at least one of them, and it was shut down. No way that could be known to the jury that two corrupt agents who had full keys to the kingdom. They could do anything. They had passwords, keys. They could act as Dread Pirate Roberts, the lead administrator, and other aliases. They changed content on the chats. They could, I should say. They could. They could do anything they wanted to cover up their trail, to point the finger elsewhere, to do all kinds of things. And the jury didn't know a thing about it. None of it came out until two months later, but it was too late. Another thing that came out 2 months later was that someone using the Dread Pirate Roberts account, that supposedly Ross is the only one, logged into the Silk Road Forum. He had been in solitary for almost 7 weeks. There's no way it was Ross. Someone else was running that, and I believe there were many. And that came out in Deep Web. If you saw it, it came out. They were interviewing someone, said, "Oh yeah, there were lots of them." It's obvious.
They didn't want people to know that there was multiple admins.
They wanted their trophy. They wanted that trophy.
And do you think Chuck Schumer had anything to do with that? Like he wanted to make his big splash,
Well, he got on the courthouse steps and called for the takedown of Bitcoin and Silk Road. He also publicly wrote to Eric Holder when Ross was arrested, Eric Holder was the Attorney General of the United States at the time. "Congratulations, you got your man." And I'm like, wait a second, aren't we supposed to have trials and innocent until proven guilty and all that, and not taint the jury pool in New York? The lead prosecutor was Preet Bharara, who was Schumer's special counsel for years. The judge was recommended by Schumer to Obama to the bench. And Ross was brought back from California, where he lived and was arrested, to New York, Schumer State. So you can draw your own conclusions if, Schumer.
Well.
Seems a little excessive.
Yeah.
Cozy,
very cozy.
Mitchell, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how did you first meet Jacob?
I think it was a Pork Fest. Pretty sure it was a Pork Fest. And I came to Pork Fest. Well, I'll just tell you a little bit of the saga. When I first started trying to fight for Ross, nobody knew me, and I ended up being at going to Austin. They were having South by Southwest and a Bitcoin conference, and I got in. They let me in for free, and I was talking to people, and I ended up meeting someone named Harlan Dietrich, who was had Brave New Books in Austin, and he just really was a big supporter. He printed up a bunch of T-shirts, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to this festival. You need to come." I said, "It's up in New Hampshire." And I said, "Oh, well, I can come. I'm living up in New York. I can come and I can hand out flyers and stuff." And he's like, "No, you should speak." And I'm like, "Oh God, no, don't make me speak." Right. And then he goes, "No, I know the organizers. I'll see if they'll have you speak." I'm like, "Oh God." And then they wrote back and said, "Oh, sorry, we're full. We can't have, we don't have room. It's too late." And I'm like, "Oh, thank God." Then they wrote back and go, "No, wait a second. We're going to have you on Saturday night, the big night, in the pavilion, the biggest venue in the thing." I'm like, okay. Okay, here we go. And I worked my butt off on that speech, but it came across, and actually Nick Gillespie was in the audience and, said, "Hey, will you be on Reason TV?" And he said, "That's your first speech? Okay, well, let's put you on Reason TV." And it's been, that started me off, and I believe it might have been at that Pork Fest that I met Jacob. It all blends. it's so long ago now, and I think, God, Ross has been in prison the whole time. It seems so long ago, and ugh, it's awful. But anyway, but since then, I have run into him at many freedom oriented. I just think the last time I saw him was at Freedom Fest, but we also had dinner with mutual friends and everything in New Hampshire. And here it is a year later already. So yeah, and he's very well respected, very clear thinker. I told Ross I was going to be on. He goes, "Oh, that's great. He's great."
Right.
Ross is very high regard for him. So yeah.
So I take it Jacob has your support to get the nod for the libertarian.
Well, I better stay out of politics.
No, I know. I did want to ask you though.
Look, if he did, I think it'd be great. But I think there's lots of good people. I can't
Absolutely.
get involved.
I did want to ask you though
I do respect him a lot. Yeah.
I did want to ask you though how this whole experience has changed you, your views personally, politically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a big leap for me because I've always been pretty freedom-minded and independent and, please government get out of my life kind of person. And but I was patriotic. I felt like this was the country, that was upholding the ideals of freedom, that we would have a fair trial. This is America. And so it really dashed my patriotism in a sense, although I'm very, very much value the actual principles that our country is founded on, but I think they've been hijacked. I do. When I saw what happened at that trial, I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? It's already stacked against Ross before he walked in the room. There's a lot of things that were stacked against him. We have I don't know if you've seen the thing we have called the true untold story. It used to be railroaded. It's all written down also, and it goes into all of that, and it's all footnoted exactly what happened. And but it was already stacked against him before he walked in that courtroom, and then the government had put out a thing at bail about murder for hire, and then when it came around to, which we didn't know about, no one knew about, his lawyer didn't know about. He's like, "Whoa, what are you talking about? What's this?" And then 2 months later, when they actually charged him for trial, it wasn't there. And they didn't charge him at trial. But the media had 2 months to just go murder for hire. And we've been dealing with that forever. But it was totally never convicted. The jury never ruled on it. There was another indictment in Maryland based on material from Karl Mark Force, one of the corrupt agents who is now in prison, by the way, that has been dismissed with prejudice. It's gone. It's gone from the law and the legal system, but it's not gone from the media. And because it's so much more exciting. Come on.
With prejudice.
To talk about that.
With prejudice, that means that it absolutely not.
Never be brought up again.
Yeah. And recently didn't, was it the person who that allegedly was against has come out in support of Ross?
Well, no, the person who was, they faked his death. Yeah, Curtis Green, I think you're referring to.
Yeah.
They faked his death as part of a sting. They meaning the two corrupt agents. Because Curtis got busted. So he basically, they got the keys to the back door of Silk Road where they did all kinds of mischief, including stealing, but not only stealing. They were involved in some other corruption as well. But in any case, in fact, including getting paid by DPR, who the government felt was Mark Karpelis. That's who they thought it was, or the lead investigator was sure it was. And even after the Ross was arrested, he was sure of it. But anyway, Curtis Green. So he got busted, and so they faked his death with ketchup and all whatever to supposedly tell DPR and DPR supposedly said, "Oh, we'll have him murder. That's the murder for hire. Have somebody kill him." First of all, the chat that's based on is the phoniest sounding thing I've ever heard. It's like, it really sounds to me like the same person wrote both roles. But also, Ross types like a techie. I've never gotten an email from him that had capital letters, basically. It's like he types like a techie. He's like, and this is like perfectly capitalized and punctuated. And I'm like, this doesn't look real to me. This chat. The other thing is, so Curtis does not believe it was Ross that did it because no one knows who was really behind DPR and the whole murder for hire. And even if there was a sting, it's just it was DPR. But now everybody's morphed it was Ross. There's no witness. It's all anonymous chats, and they've just decided, well, Ross is DPR, so he did that. Well, we don't even know if Ross is DPR. It's been pretty well established that there were multiple. So Curtis does not believe that it was Ross. He has come out and supports on our homepage. He tweeted he does not believe it was Ross. He's told me personally and publicly that he looks forward to the day Ross is out. He's actually afraid of the corrupt agents getting out. That's what he's really afraid of, he said. And that he thinks Ross is great and he totally supports us and me and everything. That's pretty rare for a supposed victim of murder to come out for the person who was planning his murder, because he knows it's not Ross. So he has his own thoughts about who he thinks it is and what happened, but he doesn't think it was Ross. And so.
Go ahead, Rich.
Oh no, I was just shaking my head there.
I was just gonna say this is pure speculation on my part, but you get 2 DEA agents who are in prison right now who both had access to the Silk Road, and like you said, the punctuation in the writing didn't look right. I mean,
oh no, it looks, yeah.
I mean,
it was a DEA agent, and the other guy, Sean Bridges, was a Secret Service agent who was on assignment from the NSA. And by the way, the NSA, a couple of months before Ross was arrested, it came out a couple of years ago, The Intercept broke this, that Snowden documents show that the NSA was urgently tracking Bitcoin users right before, fairly soon, very much before Silk Road was taken down. They're supposed to be tracking terrorists, right? They're really worried about Bitcoin. I feel like Bitcoin was the whole motivation for stringing Ross up, basically. And because that is what I think they were really worried about. I do. Because the biggest drug seller on Silk Road got 10 years. He has the same defense level as Ross. Ross didn't sell drugs. He was not convicted of selling. He had made a platform. But see, a revolutionary idea is much more threatening than drugs to people in power. And Bitcoin is also a very revolutionary idea. They were going after Bitcoin using the powers of the NSA. And of course, this was all secret, but it came out with Snowden. And, meanwhile, like I say, they're supposed to be tracking terrorists, and terrorists get much less than Ross is got. Much. Convicted terrorists.
and the following Silk Road, like Silk Road 2, 3, those people have been caught and imprisoned with very light sentences.
One of them, Blake Benthall, who was running it, never went to prison. He kind of, and it was bigger, Silk Road 2. This is Silk Road 2. I don't know about the other ones. Silk Road 2 was bigger, according to the government. It was identical, big, but bigger, sold more drugs in a month. They arrested Blake Benthall, great fanfare. Oh, we got the second DPR, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly he disappeared. And I'm like, whatever happened to that guy? So I started kind of looking, and in the prison records, it says released. He was released 13 days after his arrest and never heard from him again, except Vice recently found out that his punishment was 2 years back taxes. That's it. No prison time. And, something's really wrong when one person gets nothing and the other gets double life without parole for essentially the same crime. And in fact, it violates the Sentencing Reform Act, which says a similar crime gets a similar sentence. I don't want Blake Benthall in prison. Don't get me wrong. I want Ross out of prison. So
Right.
It's not, but it's certainly not fair. It's not justice. And it shows that they're actually not worried about the drugs, or they wanted their trophy. And I think because Ross created the idea of the platform, they wanted him.
Yeah, and as you were kind of talking about before too, like through the invention of the Silk Road, Bitcoin became much more of a household name.
Oh, it put it on the map. He's been called the second most important figure in Bitcoin history after Satoshi Nakamoto. because nobody would have heard of it. It would have been a plaything for geeks. I mean, no one would have. But and so a lot of people have made a lot of money off of Ross's idea. And I often call out to them and say, and many have helped me. Don't get me wrong, many have helped me fight this fight. And I should say us, because we're all fighting it. But I say to them, please, you have great wealth or even some wealth because of Ross. Please help me fight this, because the problem is it goes on and on. We have a bunch of lawyers right now. It's to keep this thing rolling, and it requires that kind of funding. And but yeah, Ross, without Ross's vision of it proved it could be used as money. That's the thing. It was the first proof of use of Bitcoin. So suddenly, oh, what's this Bitcoin? Of course, it got the attention of the powers of financial powers, which wasn't great. But you don't cross those people too. But, scary. But yeah. So anyway, yeah, I do believe the Bitcoin. I think it was the Bitcoin. I don't think it was the drugs. I think the drugs were an excuse.
Right. I'm sure you guys have a donation section on the website.
Yes, we certainly do.
Yeah. So everybody, please.
Red button at the top, donate, and we take crypto. We take, of course, dollars, checks, credit cards, all of that. Yeah. Please do help us that way. Also, just energy and spreading the word and going to the rallies in your state, and any connections in any way that you can think of, and ideas. But for sure, donations, whatever you can give, would very appreciated.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, please, everybody, if you can, whatever you can give, please go to freeross.org and check that out, please. Mitchell, do you have anything?
No, we've pretty much checked all the boxes that I have right here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, one of the things that drew me to Jacob, why I like him so much, is because he puts the drug war right up there at the top of his priorities. It's foreign policy and drug war, and how important it is, and how it just ruins so many lives. I just want to read the beginning of his paragraph on his website. Drug war, legalized drugs, all of them. It would be difficult to find a better example of a failed and destructive federal program than drug prohibition. Not only has the war on drugs failed to achieve its purported objective of eliminating or drastically reducing drug consumption in America, it has also contributed greatly to the level of violence and corruption in America and Latin American societies, and to the destruction of the liberty and privacy of the American people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, look, it doesn't work for its purported goals, as he said. It's been going on for over 45 years, I think. America's longest war. And it's cost taxpayers, I forget the amount. It's over $1 billion. It has a B in it, for sure.
Oh.
And I do believe people are still doing drugs. At least that's what I hear. It has not worked. And at all. And in countries where it is legalized, it has worked. I mean, to do that, to make it, to take away the violence. It's a huge moneymaker. Since the drug war, the prison population has metastasized over 800%. 800%. It's turning us into an incarceration nation. If the prison population were a state, it would be bigger than 11 states. It's like its own state. And and this is the drug war. It's over 60%, I believe, in prisons now. Maybe it's prisons and jails, or state prisons and federal. Incarcerated people, over 60% are nonviolent drug offenders, and some immigration offenders. And the rest, so that's making up the majority. And this is why one of the biggest lobbyists against marijuana legalization is the prison guard unions. It's a jobs program. Same with the police unions. And then you can add in private prisons, which is unbelievable. Judges and prosecutors can invest in prisons while they're sending people to prison.
No conflict of interest there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
And then there's the pharmaceutical companies, of course. And finally, the alcohol and beer companies. And then you throw in the cartels because they're not an official lobbyist, but the cartels benefit probably more than anyone.
Absolutely, yeah.
They, you know, yeah.
That's one of the things. It keeps them in power. That's one of the things I say all the time is you legalize drugs, you're going to take that. You're going to take that away. You're going to take away their main source of income,
Correct.
and it could lead to an overall reduction of violence everywhere. Even most of the violence you see in the cities in America, all the gang violence, it's all centered around the war on drugs.
It's true. It's totally, and the same thing happened in, with prohibition of alcohol, and the mafia came out of that. But at least then they passed an amendment to, make it illegal, and then passed another amendment to make it legal again. This they just wrote themselves a memo or something and gave themselves the power. There's no constitutional support for making drugs illegal and putting people in cages for the rest of their lives over anything. It's not in there, and no, it's terribly corrupt, and it's about the money and powers and taking away our freedoms. Oh God, when they seize money from people because you must be a drug dealer.
Asset forfeiture.
Yeah, asset forfeiture. My brain.
Yeah.
And things like that. Or if it's brought to trial, or court, it's like, well, it's about drugs, and this is the drug exception. There's an exception if it's about drugs, so the Bill of Rights goes out the window. It's slowly eroding even more our rights based on this. Well, it's about drugs, and we're going to stop drug use with our drug war, which hasn't worked in over 45 years and cost the taxpayer, over $1 billion. It's outrageous. It's like if it worked, okay, it still would be unconstitutional. But if it actually worked, maybe there'd be an argument. But they know it doesn't work. They know even the government can figure that out. They know well that's not what they're doing. They know.
I think I've seen the numbers of drug use has pretty much stayed the same the whole way through since the beginning of the war on drugs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the prison population sure hasn't. It was like 100,000
Yeah.
for years and years and years, and now it's spiked up to over 2 million. Yeah, and they're building them, and they're, I guess, the thing is about making drugs illegal. People are going to do drugs. They can't even keep drugs out of the prison. Okay, maybe they can't even do that. How can the drug war possibly work? But they keep putting people in prison. So are we going to have just a country of cages? Is that so we can stop people from using drugs? I mean, it's just like whatever. It's crazy if you really think about it. And I'm not saying drugs are good. There's a lot of very destructive drugs. I'm not, you don't have to be pro-drugs to be against the drug war.
That's one of the things people level at libertarians. You're just Republicans who want to smoke pot. No, when Ron Paul stood up and said, yeah, even heroin. And then he was like, is anybody here, if we've legalized heroin, raise your hand if you're going to go and do it. It's not about the drug. It's about the harm that the policy brings on the American people.
Right, and it's not like, they could regulate it. They could, it's not, it's not like, oh, here, little 6-year-old, have some heroin. No. I don't know. There's ways to do that. Whatever. It's just, but I agree. They have no authority. No one gave them the authority. They took it.
Absolutely. All right. I just had something, but I forgot. I was gonna so obviously Ross has no internet access or anything, but he is able to get some stuff out that's posted on the Twitter, correct?
He sends things by mail.
Right.
Yeah.
And which Twitter account is that? That's at Ross Ulbricht.
Rail Ross U.
Rail Ross U. Okay.
Ross free underscore Ross is I mainly run that one.
Okay. So I want to post all those on there's that one, then there's the at free Ross one, right? That's the other one.
Free underscore Ross and then real Ross U.
Okay, great.
I mean, the ads in both of them, obviously, but mhm.
You want to mention the website again and what people
Yes.
what people can do to help in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah. So freeross.org is our hub. It's very dense, so you can get really down deep into it, or on the surface you can see a lot of things just right there. The homepage itself is like whoa, you know. So the freeross.org. There's a place to click to sign the petition. There's a place to click to don't. There's a donate button. There's there's a page called Meet Ross. There's 100 letters on there from people who actually know him that are very inspiring. I may have mentioned that already. There's all kinds of places to look into it. But yeah, that it would be so helpful. There's an action page, which things you can do to help. And if we're really working on these rallies, and if you are willing to help, either with all of the, organizing everything with us, or else just in your state, please let me know. The petition's huge. I really want to get to 500,000. That's my overall goal, although it's, great as it is now. But we need more. And there's a lot of people, it's funny, at conferences and stuff, I'll go, oh, I'm really supportive of Ross. And I'm like, have you signed the petition? No, I haven't done that yet. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? And so please, if you haven't, and please share it so more people can see it. And it's just a tool. Look, there's no magic number. It's a tool to say, pay attention. This is a movement. These are a lot of people. This is worthy of attention here. And yeah, so those are the basics, but and political connections. That's also big.
That's huge.
It really is. I mean, that's really where we're at right now. And so if anyone has political connections, not only just straight to the White House, but at different levels. So in your state or whatever, because people, it all connects. So yeah, anything you can do, and just spread the word on social media too, because there's still a lot of misinformation, and we always need more followers and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Freeross.org. Is Ross teaching classes?
Yeah, he is. He just finished teaching a math class. He's taught classes the entire time that he's been incarcerated, and they've been physics, math, that kind of thing. He's helped people get their GED, high school, qualification. He also, there's a letter actually on our site of he helped 4 guys get into college, and he was saying he's so patient and he's so giving and he was so generous with his time to. He's a good teacher. He's a good communicator. So they all got into remote college curriculum because of Ross. Yeah, and he also was taught yoga, things like that. But he just finished up another math class, and yeah, and he's helped inmates. They need help writing a letter, or they need to a lawyer or something like that. And Ross is always ready to help people. He's just like that. And so that's gotten him through, because it's tough going in, especially the maximum security warrants, which is a very dangerous place. He got through it, year and a half there, and without, fairly unscathed, which there were murders and stabbings and beatings, and it's a dangerous, dangerous place. He had no reason, he should never have been put in there.
Is he safer now, in a safer place now?
Much safer now. And it's because the thing is, he's where people who are targeted in the system are put to be safe, because he refused to participate in assault with more than one person on another inmate. And because of that made him a target. So he put himself in protective custody, which was basically 3.5 months of solitary, no window or anything. Yeah. And so then he, was moved, thankfully. So he's safe.
How often do you visit him?
Every weekend I'm here. I do travel to, raise awareness and funds and all of that. Like I'm leaving Tuesday for New Hampshire and Liberty Forum. But every weekend he has visiting privileges. So that's good. And that helps him get him through. I mean, that's why I moved here, so that I could make sure he had that lifeline. It's awful. So many of these people have no visitors, no family. They've turned away from them. They cut them off. They want nothing to do with them ever again. And so there's usually the same regulars come to visit, and then there's others, but it's very sad situation for a lot of people.
Well, man.
Gotta change.
Next
Gotta
time you
change.
go, send our regards. Tell him Jacob in this
I
whole
will.
campaign has his back, and we're
Thank you.
fighting.
I
We're
appreciate
fighting
that.
for him.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
No,
So
Jacob, I so appreciate what he does. Yeah.
we will absolutely. Thank you so much, Lynn, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Me too.
All
Yeah.
right, we'll end it here. Nice talking to you.
Okay. Me
All
too.
right. Bye
Bye,
bye.
guys.
That's next time.
Yeah.